Yeah, there's some weird ones.
Until tomorrow.
I enjoy this. I sent to. Not for sure, no.
Not now, from Maria and Jose.
Oh, of course.
Yes. I like that. How are you? You live on Maple Drive?
I live on Louise. That's in emergency management.
So, we'll let her.
Okay, 7:30 p.m. on February 18th.
7.
I'm sorry, 7 p.m. I'll bring the Board of Selectmen's meeting to order, starting with a roll call from my right.
Paul Sanderson.
Chester Duraki. Vaughn Morgan.
Chip Huzzy.
And Jim is absent, but we have a quorum, and the meeting is being recorded. Okay, tonight we have the second of 2 public hearings on the renaming and numbering of the roads tonight. At the first hearing on the 4th, the board voted to keep the main road and extension as Maple Drive, with the loop to be renamed. There has since been some discussion, I believe, between the chief and some residents, so I'm going to open the public hearing, starting with a comment from Chief Laurent.
You did vote to keep Maple Drive, the loop. Hopefully there's a consensus on a name. And we have redone the numbering, if anybody wants to take a look. Really, we just addressed what we talked about last time about the 2 condos that are on the corners, that the residents that live there felt like it would be easier for them if we numbered off of their driveways instead of off of where the building was facing and just keeping them together. So those numbers are reflected there, and we recommend we go forward with the number.
Are there any new maps? I'm sorry.
Yes, right here.
Go ahead.
Right
I just
here.
wanted to know.
Yep.
Yeah,
Do you want to hand them to anybody else?
Yeah.
I knew I brought you for something.
I know.
It's like in grade school. No, I'm all set. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, are there any comments from the public? And if there are, would you please state your name and your address?
I'll stop, because I was talking with Chief Laurent via email about this issue that we had. My name is John Pacheco. I live at 62 Maple Drive, which is on Road B. So when we changed it over to Maple Drive, and it was approved, it was a good idea to keep that, well, they changed the colors of it now, the yellow road, the main road off of Breakfast Hill, to keep it Maple Drive, because it's already established name in the town. The signs are already up there, and for people to give directions of where we live, we tell everybody it's off of Breakfast Hill Road, take a right or take a left. And so that makes it a lot easier for a lot of delivery people. However, I did notice that there are, if you change the name and change the numbers, you're going to end up with duplicate numbers and addresses. So I have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about 11 addresses that are going to be affected by it. So for instance, if we start at 6 Maple Drive, which is going to become 18, there is already an 18 Maple Drive existing further down, a couple houses down, which is now going to become 40 Maple Drive. Okay, so what's going to happen is during this transition period, and probably for years to come, is that delivery people or anybody else who's not familiar with the area is going to look for 18 Maple Drive. Well, is it the new Maple Drive, 18 Maple Drive, which is at the first house, or is it the one further down? Okay. In addition, if you go further down, for instance, I have one, the 6X and 8X, which is on the extension, is going to become 66 and 68 Maple Drive respectively, which is my next door neighbors, which are over, which is going to be 17, 19, whatever the new street is going to be. And you know that when I talked to that neighbor, he was very concerned about it, because if there's packages or, again, oil delivery or a service contract or something or other coming down, they're going to say, well, I live at 66 Maple Drive, and maybe the person's not familiar with it. He's going to go down and do it. So my suggestion, the solution to this whole thing, is to keep the numbers 18 and 20, but add a prefix to them, 100. Make them 118, 120, 130, 132. And then looking up on the E91 regulations, and in numbering houses in the United States, there's no regulation that says we have to start with number 1 and 2 and work our way down. We're keeping the 50-foot increments and everything. We're just changing them to 118. So if we do implement this, the new houses would stay Maple Drive, but would become 118, 120 Maple Drive, and then there would be no confusion with the old Maple Drive addresses that are going to be there for at least a year or maybe a year and a half before everything settles down. And this is one of my neighbors who lives on the thing, who's going to be affected by it.
Because I live at 41 Maple Drive, Eric Chassie, and now the new 41 will become Jeff Weeks, who lives at 17. So thank goodness I know the guy, but who knows? So I think this is a great idea if there's no regulation on starting with 100, because then you have all new numbers. Because they're going to have to change their addresses anyway to numbers, so I'd rather not get my address confused with somebody else.
Okay.
So if you,
And I think that's a valid argument or about them repeating, which is why we originally said it shouldn't be Maple Drive. But everybody in here said, oh, that doesn't matter. We can, make sure the mail works.
Well,
So rather than adding the 1 in front of it, the 911 standardization recommends would say to change the name. If you don't want the number repetition, change the name and there won't be any confusion of Maple Drive, and then name Road B, and then we're fixed. That issue is fixed.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything to
I
say?
just want to clarify, I was away on the last meeting. Oh, I'm sorry, Linda McGurn, 14 Maple Drive Extension. From my understanding, where I'm located now on the extension, that now becomes Maple Drive, is that correct?
Direct that to, that's the 9/11 commission
Yep.
right there, so.
As per the vote that was taken last time, yes. Our recommendation originally, and I guess we're going back to that, would be that Road A get renamed, but your number would be 79.
Okay, thank you.
That this road, whether it's Maple Drive or something else, should be the same. It'll be the same all the way through. There will not be an extension. So that will be nice, and there won't be an X in your address.
Yes.
I guess Eric Chassie again, 41 Maple Drive. Is there a reason why 911 is opposed to us doing 118?
Yes, the standardization, every step that we take away from their recommendations or their standardizations makes it obviously not standard, which is where we stand now, the whole reason that we're redoing. So if you start at 1, you add 1, so 118 is the first one. Again, when mutual aid comes from another town, if they're not familiar with it, yes, it's not going to take a rocket scientist to figure out, oh geez, these are all in the hundreds. But when you turn onto a road, the first one you expect to see is not going to be 100 and some. 50-foot increments indicates that the first one, like number 50, will be about X amount down the road.
Right, I know. You just said it wasn't a regulation, so I guess why would they have that as part of their regulation, I guess, would be my question.
The standardization says that numbering will start closest in the middle of town and expand out in 50-foot increments. It doesn't say it will start at number 1. I think that's kind of assumed. I did forward our back and forth emails with Mr. Pacheco to 911. And, she said, obviously now we're 2 steps away from standardization because the original would be not to keep Maple Drive because of the number issue, just for confusion's sake. But, it was voted on last time. I don't know how the Board of Selectmen feels at this point, so. I totally agree that it could be, the mail will be the issue for a while. If it's, old Maple Drive, new Maple Drive type of things.
Anybody else? Okay.
I will say one
Go
additional
ahead.
thing. The only thing I want to say against my own argument is that the people from Maple Drive last time are not here tonight because
Yeah, they were happy with it.
they were under the understanding that it was accepted. So I don't know if we need to have a third one if we're not going to go with Maple Drive. I don't know where you fall, where you stand on.
Okay. I will tell you that way back when I was on the board that started this whole 9/11 thing, and I've always backed up the 9/11 Commission, no matter what they did, even if it affected me or whatever. So I listen to what the 9/11 Commission says, and we'll go along with their recommendation. The board has their own opinions on what they want to do. And do you, any comments?
I'm going to say the people wanted to keep the Maple Drive. I haven't been convinced it's as big a problem as it's been made out to be. The three addresses, I would say, when's this change actually taking place?
June 11th.
Who leaves it for Paul put signs up in the weather?
Well, it's just,
Well,
it's just two signs, right?
Right.
Whatever road B is gonna be is
Yeah,
the only
Right,
thing
it's
that will
really gonna be
change.
the only sign.
but I don't see a problem keeping it Maple Drive. People are just going to be on the ball on changing their house numbers on their houses, especially on your mailboxes, that's where the problem's going to be.
well, there's 10 addresses that are gonna be affected by it. And so it's gonna be a long time, at least, I know for the mail purpose, it's gonna take a long time to do it. Like I had said before, I work in Durham, and I still get mail for the town hall address to 15 Newmarket, and they're across the street at 8 Newmarket. Now, it's on my postal route, so it's not a big deal for me.
It's the big sign gives it away, doesn't it?
But I just brought this up because it's gonna affect these 10 addresses. It's gonna affect my neighbor here and such, not so much,
Well,
for
like
the
he
mail,
said though, if we change our house numbers.
And I don't, I mean, you're gonna, it's totally up to you. I just brought it up as a possible problem, and, and. that's it.
I do deliveries, I do service, and I can tell you right now, this is the least confusing, once they get it done.
Really?
It is. Try going to 3 different towns with the same road, and all the numbers keep they'll start off high, and then they'll start off low, and they'll go back to high again, so it's crazy.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi. I still have a question, and it probably doesn't mean anything, but I'm currently at 3537, and now it's going to be 49 Maple and then 70 Road B, whatever you guys decide to call it. But if they're attached houses and they face the same exact way, the doorways faced exactly the same way. So it's done because of the driveway, correct? Is that why?
Yes, originally the 911 recommendation is to go whichever way the house faces and both off of one road. But as long as it's within the same town and we do it the same all the way through the town, you can choose to do it by driveway. So last time we had it up that they were both those corner ones
Right.
were numbered off of the same road. 49 and 70, I believe those stayed off of Maple. And the first ones, 5 and 7, were off of Road B.
No,
No, the
not
guy who
the
lives at, I'm sorry, Chief Laurent, the gentleman who lives at 70 is a firefighter. His,
Yes.
his house, his front door and his garage doors face
Maple.
Road B. Face
Right.
Road B.
So
His
no,
driveway
no.
is off of
They
Maple
do.
Drive. Yeah. No, on 5 and, on what's now 5 and 7.
I live there.
Right. But he wanted to.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
So last time, the recommendation was for these to be numbered off of Road B, these two to be numbered off of Maple Drive. We spoke with, in the meeting last time, he said that he wanted it to go off of his driveway. He felt that it was so confusing. And so we asked if there was any issue with going off of driveway. And I believe that you said that you didn't care either way.
Was that the last meeting?
Yeah, as long as it
He wasn't
didn't.
here the last meeting.
Yes, he was a firefighter, yeah.
Oh, I'm talking about my neighbor.
Yeah, your neighbor was not here.
Oh, not your neighbor.
Her neighbor was not here, but
No.
the
Right.
gentleman, the other one.
And same thing with him. So we split them based on
So it's
the
done by
conversation we
driveway,
had.
that's all I'm trying to.
This one has been done by driveway, and therefore anywhere else in town that comes up, it's always gonna go by driveway.
Is this the first time it's come up?
This particular issue, yeah.
Okay, cool.
So it has to be connected houses.
Didn't we have one on Great Bay Drive East? That was the corner.
They
that-
were a duplex and they,
That was originally in their driveway, they ended up moving the driveway over 5 feet, so that it
okay,
would
to
stay
fix
the
it. But I
same.
remember we had
So
that
we've-
similar,
Right, so we've never had a duplex that they're going to still be on 2 roads that we've had to deal with, so.
Okay, anybody else? Anybody else from the board?
I think the issue is not service people and stuff like that, it's more like drop shipments and mail. How long, does anybody know how long the mail carriers will deliver the mail to both addresses?
Yes, they'll do it for a year,
For a year, okay.
for a year.
So for the record, I had to change my address in town as well.
Because
So
basically. in a
that's where the
year-
big problem's gonna come up. It's not, you know, you might get, you might get a load of loam in your driveway that's not supposed to be yours, and like that. But the Amazon and the mail, and everything like that, which is the future. I mean, you can find the number if you drive up to it, you're gonna find the right house sooner or later, but if, you know, if it's a name and a number, and you don't have to find anybody else, I think that's where the problem is. I hate to say it, but I think we have to reconsider and have another meeting and change the name with the people that are not here. I think that's one way to break it down and fix it. I hate to say it. Then you don't have any recycled numbers.
Okay, what's the requested name for Road B among the neighborhood?
We hadn't got to that part.
We haven't gotten to that yet.
So you're saying that Maple Drive is gonna have to be renamed, that's what you're saying?
I think that's the best solution to the rules of 911 commission. I mean, to the way it goes.
And any of the roads we've done so
That's
far,
the
have
way.
they been recycled numbers? Any of them match as bad as this one?
just, yeah.
They want to talk about
Dearborn,
It had a couple of
but not as
No,
much.
Nothing like this one, so we have nothing to compare it to.
No, because we will always recommend to not have recycled numbers.
All right.
If they override it or the board wants to override it, then, but because of confusion, that's why 911 doesn't usually do that. Recycle.
Go ahead.
Linda McGurran again. Just a question. So on 77 and 79, when you're coming down the road and you make the turn with the last house on the left, I actually I'm 14. It goes
Yep.
14, 12.
Yep.
Does it make sense that we're doing it that way? If we're changing the numbers, shouldn't the number reverse? Because wouldn't 77 come before 79?
Yes, are you talking about on the right and left-hand side? Yes, absolutely. As you're looking at it, on the left will be 77, and on the right will be 79,
Okay, so-
regardless of what.
This looks reversed as far as, you have it,
So 77 would be this side,
would be 14,
and 79 would be the other side.
okay.
Yeah, we'll always do it from left to right as the numbers are growing.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
I'm just gonna make a recommendation, you know, that we could draw this out for meeting after meeting, and since, you know, again, it doesn't affect me, but I just wanted to bring this up, that we just keep Maple Drive, you know, like they suggested last time, the residents on that street, that section, said they want to keep it Maple Drive, and I think we should keep it Maple Drive for the reasons that I've stated, that it already exists, and the signs are there, it makes it easy for delivery people, and then we just keep the numbering, and then those 10 addresses, we can just deal with that with the mail delivery, as Mr. DeRoche just said, you know, and it's just, we'll just have to, you know, deal with it and work with it as time goes on.
All right, so you're saying keep Maple Drive and Maple Drive Extension as Maple
As
Drive?
Maple Drive, as you guys agreed upon last time, and again, Chief Laurent told them, you know, this is gonna happen, and they were like, yeah, we're fine, we'll deal with it. And I think we should just keep it Maple Drive for just the reasons I stated. And then tonight, we can just name the Road B, the curve section, and I have a list of the names, and we can name it, and then we'll be done and just move on and get everything ready to make the change in June.
Okay, assuming we keep Maple Drive and Maple Drive Extension as one road, do you have a name? Anybody come up with a
I
name?
have several names, I gave them last time to Mrs. Anderson. I'm gonna give you my suggestion that I came up with. My pick is to name it Juniper Lane, And my reasoning for doing it is that there are no streets in Greenland that begin with the letter J. Juniper trees are common in the area. I'm always digging them out of my yard when I'm mowing the grass. Since we have Maple Drive, that area is a tree-themed neighborhood. We figured we'd keep it, named after some tree in the area. And it's a pretty, neutral street name. It's, not named after anybody or anything like that. So I came up with Maple Drive. And then, of course, I had other tree names that weren't common, weren't already used in the town and everything. I had elm, chestnut, dogwood, poplar.
Okay, I remember those.
Yeah.
We got juniper from you. Does anybody else have an idea? Go ahead.
We like magnolia and pine view or jasmine. Yeah, we don't want juniper.
Okay.
Say Magnolia for 41 Maple Drive.
Magnolia.
Both Magnolia over
Okay.
Juniper.
Does everybody like magnolia?
Yeah.
Sure.
It's kind of a nice ring to it.
Yeah.
Why don't you go arborist and cover all the trees?
Did you really? Mrs. Hussey said not to use arborvitae or whatever.
Arborvitae.
Arborvitae. Yeah, that's- so don't use arborvitae.
Does magnolia conflict with anything?
Nope.
Actually, it's on my list.
Do you have a preference of lane or way or drive or street?
Well, I was going to suggest not using drive because we already have Maple Drive, so
Right.
lane was fine, Magnolia Lane is fine, but whatever people want is fine. If people like Magnolia Lane, I'm fine with it.
Okay,
A desperate housewife.
all right. Any other comments from the board?
A lot of them live on me.
Oh, yes, there is.
Yes, there we go.
Any last comments from the public? All right, then I'm going to close the public hearing and move on to a motion. If somebody from the board would like to make a motion,
I'll make a motion.
good.
I'm gonna move that we approve the numbering of Maple Drive as recommended first.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Just to clarify, Chip, what do you mean by as recommended? You mean to leave the numbers that we have here, even though it recycles some numbers?
Yep.
Okay.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second it to get it discussed and moved.
Okay, any further discussion on it?
My big thing with changing, everyone was happy with Maple Drive last meeting. It will be a pain with the mail sometimes, but we'll have to work through it. That's part of the pain and suffering we go through here with these road changes and number changes.
We get different mail anyway.
Right, it's not gonna be
We
different.
get other people's mail.
Nobody paid your bills though, did they?
Believe it or not, I got a letter in my mailbox for Maple Drive.
We look surprised.
So we, yeah, that happens, not a lot, but
It does.
Yeah,
Oh,
it does.
believe me, it's happening more and more often now, I've noticed.
yes, yes.
Yeah,
So I mean, what's the difference?
right, exactly, we're not gonna get our mail anyway, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Would you just repeat that one more time?
Is to move to approve the numbering for Maple Drive as recommended, as shown on
As
the.
recommended, okay,
Yeah.
by the 9/11? Okay.
Right.
Yep.
So
All right,
both name and recommended numbers for Maple Drive.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And we want to go for a second motion?
Move to rename the Loop Road Magnolia, was it Lane Street? Lane. I was outside, dying. And approve the numbering recommended.
I'll second that.
Motion and second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Right.
Motion passes.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
So all the numbers, the purple ones are the ones that we'll be using now.
The purple and the pink.
Thank you.
But not now, not until June.
Well, I understand.
You said June 11th?
Right, June 11th is the day.
Can I ask, if I have my mailbox post engraved again, you promise not to do this?
You would have to, I would promise anything. I wouldn't get the grade.
Get away with saying that.
77.
Yes, I actually voted as.
I think you guys said June 11th. When
June
are,
11th.
yeah,
Oh,
when are we
Karen.
going to receive those packets for all the awesome forms?
The end of April, the first part of May,
Okay, awesome, thank you.
all right?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And if you could make sure and mark your houses, and there will be a page in your packet to describe that, but that will reduce on the confusion if there's not two 18s that are up or whatever it happens to be.
All right.
Okay.
Is
Yes,
there
ma'am.
gonna be a letter going out notifying everybody about the changes?
Yeah, in with the packet, there'll
Yeah.
be letters, there will be who you need to change it with, contact numbers, how to put it on your house, for your mortgage, anything, even to change your driver's license. There'll be stuff in there for it.
She'll probably be getting a lot of calls for people that weren't able to come to this.
Right,
And that's
yes,
fine.
and we get
Yeah.
them, pretty
Yeah.
regularly. If there's anyone that you know that's having a tough time with the forms, or that's elderly or doesn't know what to do, have them call either one of us and we'll sit down and walk them through the whole thing.
Was there any paperwork last time?
No,
No.
no paperwork.
You'll get it all in the mail.
Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate your attendance.
Both go to the right address.
Would you please do it as quietly, quickly as possible so we can get all of you.
If there's anything that's pressing.
Are you sure?
A lot of people are. I'm not smart.
Well, there's some species, if you look at it. So when you look at it, I'm on the left.
Right.
So I'll be 50.
We're gonna be driving through, it's all just gonna be on the correct side.
Okay, I'll be
Yes.
50. Cool, awesome, thank you. I was right. Yeah, we're gonna be 50. Yeah, go left to right.
Unless you need me.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Nice work,
Yes.
These are my important shoes. My fancy ones.
Those all to dress up, go to Sunday church.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from 3 meetings. So I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes, change them, or whatever anybody would like to do with them.
I move to approve the minutes of Thursday, January 10th, 2019 as amended. Two amendments, having motion carried after last motion amended. Amendment requested by the Selectman Hussey.
You had a comment after me, and I couldn't remember exactly what you said, but I did tell Charlotte you probably would take care of that.
I guess I was there. I haven't really looked at these. I don't see any need to make any change. I'd be happy to second the motion.
Okay.
All right, I have a motion and a second for the minutes of the January 10th. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. February 2nd.
Move to approve the minutes of Saturday, February 2nd, 2019 as written.
Second.
Have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. February 4th.
Move to approve the minutes of Monday, February 4th, 2019 as written.
And second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, under old business, we have a Coakley update.
Yeah, I have a brief update this week. We did get in, and I copied it for the board, the February report from the EPA, which updates everything that's basically going on at the site. There was a lot of press this week about what's going on at the site. So on Thursday, I did attend the Coakley Landfill Group meeting because it's now considered a public board and the meetings are open to the public. The big
That's a step in the right direction.
it's a big step in the right direction. So at the meeting, they discussed the results of the bedrock well testing. This is something that a lot of the legislation and the legislators and the people really concerned with the contamination was pushing for is to do deep bedrock testing because bedrock can have fractures in it and they wanted to make sure that the contamination through the bedrock fractures was being looked at to see if it was migrating off-site. So 3 wells were done newly drilled bedrock wells to determine if there were any fractures. The deepest one went down over 300 feet. So they were able to do camera tests down, look at the wells. They found fractures in lots of them. The well closest to the Falls Way subdivision had fractures in it. They all tested perfectly clean. There was no contamination coming from those fractures at all. One well was drilled actually the other two, and they have numbers, but it's like M21, M22. But the two that were closer to the golf club and the private residence headed towards Berry Brook, those two, they tested, they found 14 different fractures. In one well, 4 of the fractures did test positive for 1,4-dioxane. They did not test positive, and then PFOS was in 2 fractures. And those are the 2 wells that are closer to Berry's Brook. The importance of that is that fractures are below grade. These are deep. So finding the contaminants off-site below grade is showing that there is migration of the chemicals, not just from surface water or not from the rubber membrane. So it was an important discovery. EPA is on it. They are reviewing all the data. The data will be released before long. And the EPA will be determining if they want additional testing and how soon to have the other testing done. They did report at the meeting on the 2 carbon filter systems that were put in Greenland, one in the private residence and one at the golf club. The systems are very unique. They're 2 carbon filter systems that are separate and then tied together. So the water from the well is going into one system, which is being tested, goes through the next system before it goes into the residence faucet. So they tested it after 3 months of operation, and even in the first carbon filter was negative. So the way they've set this up is that they're going to test it every 3 months, or every 2 months at the golf course based on the amount of water they use, and every quarter in the private residence. When the first well tests positive for that it's gotten any of the contaminants, this one is the concern is with 1,4-dioxane, they then remove that filter, move the furthest filter over, and replace the new one. So that there'll always be one brand new filter and one that will absorb the filter. So it's basically a double filtration system. And so far, it's been working very well.
Karen, when you said it, they got numbers or whatever the chemicals were, was it above the limit or they just?
No, they were not above the limit.
Okay.
But just the migration of 1,4-dioxane is what got this whole thing started. They expand the groundwater management zone because of the migration of the 1,4-dioxane.
Good. Anything in your part, Paul?
No, I think that's a very good summary. The only thing I can tell you is legislatively and also at the federal level, they are working on what the right numbers ought to be. We have numbers in place through New Hampshire DES, but those numbers may change at the federal level. And they may also change here if the legislature mandates that to occur.
Right. Yeah, I did listen to a press conference that the interim chief of the EPA gave last Thursday, Wednesday, and listened to that press conference. And while they didn't come out with anything concrete that these are our new numbers, it was more of a promise that we hear the entire nation loud and clear on PFOA, PFOS. We're going to look at all the sciences, pull all these numbers all together, and come up with something definitive, an MOS, MQS, and
I forget what the acronym is.
but there was something that they basically were saying, we've heard you,
Right,
we're gonna do something.
yeah, we've got the gist, yeah.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Anybody like to put in? Thank you, Karen. Okay, let's see, an update on 8 Fairway Drive. Paul.
Well, me and Mr. Sanderson are having a pretty good debate on this the last week or so. Me and Jim researched it, and we come up with a conclusion where it wasn't a town issue. The reason why I say that, the way the property sits, the house is up above the road. A lot of the water comes from the golf course through her backyard. It gets to the edge of this little low spot in her property, and it's puddling there. None of it is water from the road draining onto her property. There is a drainage system inside the circle there, and it's not making it to it. Paul brought up a point, well, it's the right of way.
Okay, can I just interject here for people who don't know? Can you just tell us what the actual issue is?
The homeowner's complaining about the water on her property.
Okay, all right.
And Paul, just so you know, homeowner's right behind you.
Yeah. Hi, Paul.
We've never met, we've talked on the phone.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I know I've spoken to you.
Yes, you have.
And that's fine. I did tell you we've had conversations.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, me and Jim looked at elevations and all that from his little computer thing that he has now. And he was in agreement with me until we found out that at one point, it was 2011, the town paid for a drain on the other side of the house to be tied into that
That's right.
system.
And to go back to, this is a 1966 subdivision, and there's a cul-de-sac in there. On the subdivision plan, the cul-de-sac is shown as a 90-foot radius. It's actually paved to 75 feet. So the first 15 feet of the homeowner's property is actually town right-of-way. And that's where the ponding of the water is occurring. And if I were to guess what has happened between 1966 and now, the road's been paved enough so that instead of allowing for normal drainage off the golf course and a sheet flow across to the center, instead the road has come up and become a dam. And so at that point, the water that used to go across in sheet flow is now ponding right there. And it's approximately a foot deep right at the edge of the road, the edge of the driveway during this time of year. That's also where the power entry goes into the house. It affects not only this homeowner's driveway, but about 6 or 8 feet away, the next homeowner's driveway. If you take a look at the road, I'm also concerned that if we continue to let water stay right here, that it will start to undermine the road from below. And so I think the right fix, there's a couple of different possibilities. Either you could put in a structure and you could drain into the cul-de-sac, there is a complete drainage system to get rid of it, or you could get it high enough so that you restore sheet flow. If you've got it high enough to restore sheet flow, the question will become in the wintertime whether you're going to create an icing condition. You know, that you'd get freeze-thaw cycles and icing. So it becomes a question as to what the right method of repair is, but I do think it's a town responsibility because all of the area where the ponding is occurring is in town right-of-way.
Back a few years ago, and you may remember, we had our contractor go out and dig out in the center because that was happening then. And that seemed to have corrected it.
Right. They had to, what they had to do was they had to dig actually on the road because the pipe that was under the road was crushed. So they dug, replaced it, and daylight it out into the cul-de-sac into that area.
That's on the other side of it.
On the other side of the property. So it's basically, we got the same problem, but now on the other side.
Oh, well, it's not the same
Yes,
place.
No, it's on the other side.
I would
Okay.
say,
Because that seemed to have worked.
yeah, I want to see about 75, 80 feet between where you're having the issue,
Yeah.
the way that pipe is.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's basically on one side and then the other side.
This is where this driveway and what you think of as the Malone house.
Right. Well, I remember when we had the problem, and I had gone out there and taken a look, and we found
2011. That,
I think it
Yeah.
was late, I think it was.
no, we
might
found the
have been-
paperwork.
Oh, okay.
really.
Yeah, it was actually back in 2011.
And it's just gotten worse. Each year it gets worse and worse because he was saying that, the road's rising and it's just,
Right.
the joke is it's called, Lake Greenwood now. But it's just, and ice. And I would imagine if you talk to the postman too, when they come through to drive, it's just the road, everything there is just ice.
Right, and we've had a few complaints from others on that very same street that
Well,
we've
that
been
was one
doing
of
some.
the drain, the house that goes down further where the drain, that drain goes underneath to be cleaned.
So the cul-de-sac there, the big cul-de-sac in the center, I actually pay to have, the person who mows my grass, I actually pay to have them go down and clear all the weeds all summer long to keep that, because it will not go.
Thank
And
you
it's
very
just
much.
gonna pack up into everybody's houses there, and it just, so that's what I do. Whether the town should be paying, I don't know, but I just couldn't have it in, and neither could the neighbors.
That whole
Thank you.
development's a wet.
Yeah, it is.
development.
So
Okay.
it would be my recommendation that because it's all in town right away, that town pay for the fix, whatever that fix might be.
All right. You understand we cannot really do nothing till spring, correct?
Yes, you and I
Okay.
talked about that, or even, you sounded like it would need to be dry to do this probably. So like when it dries out, you go in
Well,
with
we
a foot
couldn't
of
do
water,
it,
it wouldn't
right.
work, right? Yeah, yeah. And I talked to, what's the person that you said that actually, you got me hooked to somebody that I talked to that does that kind of work for in
Oh,
the road.
That was Peter.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I've actually done, some
that
discussion with
was-
some of that. They said you kind of gotta get it at the right time, either
Yeah.
when it's really frozen or when it's really
The
dry.
guy
And
up
they-
on
I would
Post
think
Road
dry
that
would
does
be
the
easier.
drilling,
Yeah.
so you didn't have to cut the road.
Oh, Jack Bourne it?
Just, drill it and just drag a pipe through
Yeah.
instead of trenching.
No, it's on our property, we gotta fix it.
Yeah.
Real simple.
Okay. Any other comments from the board?
We'll end up in a sinkhole in a few years.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Let's make it so.
All right, well,
Spring project.
spring project and put it up to bid. Actually, what we can do is get a price from him for boring it or digging it, see which one's cheapest.
Right.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Nice to meet you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is to review the Cypre petition for the library.
This is Attorney Laughlin's draft for the board.
Okay, I read through it. Got as much information as I could garner being not a lawyer. But, anybody have any comments on it?
I do.
Okay,
I did some research on it, and what I was most concerned about are paragraphs, I think it's 16 and 17 on the Cypre, where, if I have it in here somewhere there, okay.
acceptance of gift and deed weeks to town.
Right. It turns out, on the acceptance of gift, the actual language there used, to see if the town will vote to accept the Weeks Library building for a free public library. And then we move into paragraph 17. Although the intent to convey the library and library land to the town would be beyond dispute, to date, no deeds from the Weeks family have been located. Okay. And so I tried to look online on record to see what I could find. What I could find was that Carolyn Weeks made this gift at the March Town meeting in 1898. By the fall of 1898, she has passed away.
Right.
And at that point, her person who had been helping her, his name was Charles A. Hazlitt. He ended up being the executor of her estate. I don't have a copy of her will. So I don't know whether or not there was a devise of the property to the town. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't believe so.
Okay.
This is the closest thing we've found is, and because just before this warrant article, there was a explanation of how she was donating the money to build this library anonymously.
Yep.
And then when the name first they referred to, well, she is, and then like through deduction, people found who it was. And so that's how they ended up doing this, like just a warrant article to accept the building.
And turns out that Charles A. Hazlitt was the president of the Piscataqua Savings Bank at the time. So these were sophisticated folks.
And I think was he named the trustee too?
He was named, I found another indication in a record that he was trustee of the library for life. And he ultimately passed away in 1920.
Yeah, she reserved the right to name a trustee
Yes.
in addition to the elected trustees. And so he was the person she picked as the trustee.
Right.
Whether he lived in town or not, it didn't, like.
Yeah, so at this point, we can kind of guess at what their thoughts are, but the reality, it seems, is that we have a quiet title problem because we can't find how title actually came to the town. We have under one construction here, you could say her intent was to give the building and have the town as the tenant, and she never did intend to give the land. Or it might have been just that there was a deed that was delivered that never got recorded. We just can't know. And so at this point, I think we're beyond Cypre to quiet title to try to figure out how the heck can we determine who does own this. To make it even more difficult, Caroline Avery Weeks was a woman who had married George Weeks. He passed away, I believe, in 1869. So she died an unremarried widow. If in fact this does pass through intestacy, it doesn't go through the Weeks family at all. It goes back through the Avery family. Okay, because at this point she's an unremarried widow. So that makes title even more potentially difficult. So again, we can't know if people have actually read her will and the property is not contained in it. Then we have no way to prove that the town actually has title to the real estate. We have this indication of the building, but we don't have any indication on the real estate.
So in other words, we don't know who owns the land.
No, exactly.
I thought at one point you said the Clow family?
Well, if you read earlier along in
That's
here,
prior.
the Clow family, and in fact, Clow is the family that's behind the Robluski title.
Yeah.
Okay, the house where Mrs. Robluski is was actually a Clow property. There was that, and then it was conveyed to a person who conveyed it to Charles Hazlitt, who was Carolyn Weeks. She apparently passed away having record title to the land. And if we can't find a deed and we can't pass it through her will, then we've got a problem on title.
Paul,
Yes, Marcia.
Marcia McLaughlin, you used a word or a term I was unfamiliar with. You
Quiet
said we're
title?
beyond, yeah, what's quiet title? If you could explain that to all of us.
Sure. In a situation, you get to this sometimes, where it's absolutely unclear who holds record title to a piece of property.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, you can bring an action in the Superior Court to try to determine who has title to a piece of property. And you can report all the evidence that you have, and at the end of this, they will make a determination and decree who has record title moving forward. But it's a different type of lawsuit than Cypre. Because remember, Cypre was about reforming a charitable trust.
Right. So the quiet title would have to occur first, and then Cypre would follow after that,
Or they might be molded in together because they might find, gee, there never was a charitable trust in the land itself because title was never in the town.
Okay.
You see, so it may be a whole different set of facts at that point.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah. And I sent an email into Peter Laughlin detailing these questions, but I don't have any answer back from him. So I'm not saying that I know who has title. I don't.
It's as clear as mud.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
But it's a significant issue. And nobody's fault, it just is.
Right.
Or if it's the fault, it may be the fault of Hazlitt and Carolyn Weeks, but certainly not of our fault.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well then, probably you sent notice to Peter about this?
I sent him an email with these questions.
Okay.
You know,
So he may have to revise
You may
this
have
to
to
That's my
add that in, because it'll still go to Superior Court.
yes.
Yeah, okay, well, let's wait to hear back from Peter before we act on this and table it.
And hopefully he'll be able to get us a copy of Carolyn Weeks's will, so at least we can take that factual question away. It would be nice if there was a nice devise in there, and I hereby devise to the town of Greenland the library land, but I don't know if we're that lucky.
Well, and I do know that Peter had told Craig that he is tapering down and getting ready to retire, so he's not working as much these days either. So it may take longer to get a response from him anyway.
Well, we'll see if we can't
And
light
frankly,
something under.
if he needs some help on things like this, let's get him some help.
Well, that, we had asked our attorney to work with him
Okay.
as well.
Okay. Yes,
Colleen Sinatra, so I have a couple questions. So if Peter's retiring, is he, I'm assuming he's turning his files over to someone, as an attorney, he has, well, he didn't tell you that? As an attorney, he has a responsibility, he can't just say, oh, I'm retiring,
He's
goodbye.
not walking out the door right now, but he is cutting back on how much work he's doing.
How many clients he takes.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, no, but I understand that. That doesn't mean he can be less responsive to the clients he has. That's no excuse for not answering, or else he needs to turn it over to someone else.
He's not ready.
So he needs to be just as responsive to the clients he has. So if he's not, then that's a problem.
I agree. That's why I said, let's see if we can light a fire.
I'll be glad to send him a follow-up email and copy everyone, get that done tomorrow. So I just wanted to contact you and say, if you don't want to do it, Peter, I understand. This is not the easiest thing in the world to do. And if you want help, just let us know and we'll get that.
And I'm just wondering, and I'm sure the select board has thought of this, but, and I understand there was a vote and we don't know who owns title, but if the town does not have title to the land, and we don't know if we do or not, does it make sense to spend multiple millions of town dollars to build a building on land that the town does not own? Just something I'm sure you guys are, just a question I would like to, I'm not expecting an answer at this meeting.
Good
Just
question.
a question
Good question, yeah.
that,
All right. Yep.
I just had a question, Marcia, who is the library's attorney?
His name is Derek Durbin. Is that right, Derek? Just a second. I think that's the right last name. I'm just drawing the blank right now.
No, that's okay.
Oh, actually, I think I cleared all of those up on second. I'll send you the name, but I think it's Derek Durbin. And he's down upstairs from Peter.
Oh, okay.
They're in the
Maybe
same
he's
building.
taking over
They're in the same
Peter's.
building. I don't know. That I don't know.
Okay. All right, so this whole thing will be tabled and taken up at a later time?
Just a thought.
Yes.
Have you ever considered adverse possession?
Okay, but if we sort of spin that out.
Pardon?
If we sort of spin that idea out, okay? If in fact the town is occupying the library building completely consistent with the gift from Carolyn Weeks, okay, has there been any adversity? In other words, we're doing exactly what the gift said.
Yeah, but you could petition for quiet title, adverse possession.
But it has to be adverse. You have to
Adverse
be,
has to be using something
you don't have a right to use.
that you don't have, yeah.
That's the problem with that.
Yeah, quiet title is the way to go.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is tracking of expenditures for the week's library.
Liz, the bookkeeper, asked the board to discuss this because in this current manifest, we have a bill for Altus Engineering, which is, it's not a lot of money, it was 800, but it's in that manifest, $817 from Altus for a review that the planning board requested to be done. It's been signed by the planning board to be paid from their consultant line item. She had the question of, do we continue to take that out of the general fund, or should that be coming out of the the capital project fund, so that all those costs can be accounted for together.
By the capital project fund, you mean the capital reserve fund?
No, capital project fund. Library expenses are in a capital project fund.
Okay.
The general fund has $5,000 line item in the planning board for consultants. So money has been, it's $816, this is current invoice. Last year, their line item was $2,550, and over $9,000 was spent from their consultant line item. Some was the library, the majority of that was the PDA, doing the traffic studies that we had for the Lonza expansion.
Mm-hmm.
So the $5,000 they had budgeted was primarily to continue with the Lonza expansion. As of right now, everything is fine, there's still money available, but she wanted it brought to the board's attention.
Okay.
If the planning board continues to request different studies or different peer reviews.
Mm-hmm. Any thoughts on that?
Well, in the ordinary circumstance with the planning board, these are expenses that would go back to a developer. Okay, if this were a normal subdivision.
Right.
But it is not a normal subdivision. Okay, it is consideration of this particular project that the town has undertaken through the library trustees. And so, to me, it is an accounting question. There's no question it's a valid invoice.
Right, yeah, and that's why she was just, am I taking it from the right place?
Yeah, I don't know if I know the answer to the accounting question. Only because at some point we're going to be subject to an audit, and I don't really know whether this should be coming out of planning board consulting, should it be coming out of the capital reserve fund, should it be coming out of the capital project fund, should it be coming out of other general fund? I don't know the answer because I don't know how to account for it correctly.
Right. As of right now, we're okay taking those type of things out of the general fund until they run out of money.
I mean, we have cash, yes, but when it comes to accounting for this within the overall books of the town, I don't know the right accounting answer.
Right. And that point at the audit, the auditor will look at our general fund to see, do we have any other expenses associated with that project that should be accounted for within that project.
Yeah.
Would it be worth asking the auditors?
I believe she did.
Did they come up with any suggestions?
Well, that's what I was gonna, yeah. Because they're the ones that gotta account for it in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Right, I don't see that she's put any, I know she's been working closely with the auditors to try and make sure that this is,
Because I would question whether we should be doing the same thing with the PDA.
PDA, yes. PDA we're handling correctly, because that was peer review and engineering expenses that.
Well, I'm not questioning whether the money's coming, I'm just tracking wise, and I think that's what she's saying.
Right, tracking wise for the Lonza stuff, we are handling it correctly, that's a general fund item.
because there is no capital project it's associated with.
Correct. That's the difference, is the capital project is just, because it's a large project, the auditor said segregate all those incomes and expenses just to be accounted for separately.
Right, and then we've had differences between this board and the library trustees on the use of the capital reserve fund.
Right, which is not, I mean, that's different than the capital project fund. The capital project fund has two sources of revenue.
Right, and so it's an accounting problem. There's no question it's a legitimate invoice.
Okay.
And I just don't know how to account for it.
Okay, well, can we refer this to the auditors and let's see if we can get a,
Right, but I think that as of right now, that $816 for Altus is in this general fund manifest. And it's been flagged, but I think it's fine to pay from there. And if at the end of the project, they want to make sure we've calculated all the costs.
And we can easily put in our minutes, as we discuss that manifest, subject to reallocation for accounting purposes.
Right.
okay.
Can I just interject a minute? Is this a question that you can ask the DRA? You know, where it should go? I mean, the planning board, did the planning board request that?
Yes.
And the planning board requested that they hire a consultant that to check the library trustees' information, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Right, it was a peer review of the engineering reports provided by the library's engineer.
Right.
So, I mean,
More of an audit rather than Department of Revenue, because it is money that is appropriated for consulting work for the planning board, and that's all the DRA would look at, is did you have budgeted funds for that project, for consulting?
For the
Yes, they
purpose.
did.
For the purpose, and they do.
Yep.
for the planning board portion?
Yep.
The planning board has a line for consultants because this happens on every subdivision.
Right, they just haven't overspent it at this point. DRA would get concerned if, I mean, their budget is $5,000. If they went significantly over, they would look at, and actually, I don't think DRA would care as long as the bottom line didn't go over.
That's right.
It would still be the auditor that would say, you know, are all these legitimate expenses to that?
Does the auditor have the final say how we allocate the money? Or they
If
just
you want a
check it
clean
in?
audit report.
Yes.
Well, I mean, a clean audit report, then they're really dictating everything that we do in the town?
No, they,
That's not what an auditor's function is.
okay. They look to make sure that we are following the government line of accounting as established by the Department of Revenue. That's all.
Well, that's why I say you go to DRA
Okay,
and ask them.
okay,
And then if the DRA says yes, then what's the auditor gonna do?
right. Okay,
That's all I'm saying.
It's how to treat it properly under generally accepted accounting standards.
right.
And that's why it's an accounting question. There's no question with openness, transparency, purpose, anything. Does it go to account A or account B? And I don't know. And all we're doing is self-disclosing to the auditor in advance, saying, I don't know where to put it. I know it's real, I know it's valid, I just don't know where to put it.
Right, it has a separate, and I think the only concern to keep in mind is that if it were to be put under that capital project fund, the appropriation authorization for the warrant article is like 3.55.
Mhm.
So we don't want to spend more than that 3.55 that it's authorized.
Can't.
Correct. Our operating budget is an appropriation authorized at X, and the planning board is authorized at X. So as long as they don't go over that, or we don't go over that bottom line, then we haven't exceeded either appropriation.
Okay.
Yes, but to the extent that we took too much out of the general fund, for example, some other legitimate purpose and service would suffer in order for us to.
Correct.
And we don't want that.
All right, so when we do get the answer down the line, if we have to make an adjustment on the books, we can do it, right?
Right, and it'll be the same way that happened the last time when she had those checks to like
Okay,
swing back and forth.
Right.
all right. Okay. Let's see, town administrator search update. Okay, the board's gonna meet tomorrow evening here at 5:30. In the beginning, we're gonna have a non-public. Doing 2 interviews tomorrow night. We're gonna be doing 2 interviews the next night. Okay, tomorrow night's meeting will start at 5:30, the next meeting will start at 6 o'clock. Mr. Gould has provided a list of suggested questions that we may want to ask. And of course, you're entitled to ask any of the questions you want to, anything outside of that. I'd like to try to keep this limited to about 3 questions so as not to run into a whole bunch of overtime. But again, that's not written in stone, so. I did contact Jim Ralston. He finally got back to me tonight because I wanted to get him the resumes just in case he was not going to be here. But Jim will be here tomorrow night and the next night, so he's on his way back. Attorney Laughlin didn't seem to think he was qualified to draw up a contract for the new TA and referred Attorney Daniel Schwartz to assist us. I asked Charlotte to contact him and inquire as to his availability and fees. Being that Paul and I will not be party to the contract negotiations, I'm going to kind of leave that part of it in your hands. Jim's hands or whoever's hands. Okay?
You want to volunteer, Jim? Jess?
Well, and if you guys want, now that Jim's gonna be back tomorrow night, that's a matter that can be dealt with tomorrow night when you have a full board.
So I can hold this off?
Let's hold off and let Jim just, I think it's a formality, but it'd be very good to be formal for once.
Okay, good, good. Okay. Liaison reports. Any? Any other old business? All right, moving on to new business. Yes.
Me and Jim Marchese, been talking and working on about doing permits for road construction, anybody that digs in the town roads, to draw a permit so we know where it's gonna be done, so we can inspect it and make them responsible.
Excavation permit.
Yeah. Do we go through the board or, building first?
Is
To
it
make-
something that's been done in the past? I don't know nothing about.
Building
permits.
inspector used to, Bob always issued them.
Since I've been here,
I don't think he worked, I don't know, we didn't have a formal road agent at the time.
Yeah.
But
But-
people, the gas company, the Portsmouth
But right-
Water, they would come in and get an
so right now, what's
excavation
happening is, we're seeing people coming in and digging up our roads and nobody's inspecting it. Or, I mean, when I was with the gas company, we got charged every hole we dug in every town. We paid a fee and we were responsible for that hole for 1 year. And that's kind of the route we want to go, so we have more control of people digging our roads up.
Well, not only that, but also working with the police department to make sure you get proper traffic control.
Yeah.
So it ought to be all those things together. Also, there's usually a sliding scale in these types of ordinances. If it's a road that you've just paved, and they open it up, they get charged more than if it's a road that's about to be paved.
Well, one thing when I was with the gas company, when towns were paving new roads, they would send out to all the utilities, you got by a certain time to get all your stuff done, you can't dig for 5 years unless it's an emergency.
Yeah.
So we couldn't tie in new services, get rid of old services or nothing for 5 years.
That's done.
And that's kind of how we are basing it upon.
Yeah, and we don't have anything in the town ordinances now on it?
According to Jim, what he found is, no, we come up
Doesn't get nothing.
Wow, okay.
and that's kind of where we're going because we talk to each other when I drive by and I'll call Charlotte. Did anybody know this company's digging up the road right now? There's no police detail, nothing.
Yeah, and that can be a selectman's ordinance because selectmen have power over the roadways. So it does not have to be a town meeting ordinance.
All right, we didn't know how to go about this.
Yeah. The best way to do it is to go to online to the City of Concord. The City of Concord has one of the most draconian ordinances in the entire state. If it's something that could confound anyone who wants to dig, it's in the Concord ordinance.
All right.
So start there and work backwards.
All right. Well, the reason why is this past year, it was an incident out off of September Drive, which raised a lot of issues from the residents there. And the contractor, we had a hard time getting back to fix the road.
Okay.
And so we had to research on who actually did it.
Yep. You also have the ability to impose a bond if you wish.
Yep. And we just wanted to write something up, make sure we're doing it right, so we have more control over the roads being dug up.
Yep. Start with the Concord language.
All right.
All right, good point, Paul. Okay, town administrators report?
I haven't been doing those now, yeah.
Audit engagement letter.
This is a continuation for Plodzik and Sanderson for 1 more year. The audit is scheduled now for the second week of May. And this is for the 2018 audit.
Any questions on it? Anybody like to make a motion?
Earlier, the board had voted to extend their contract by 2 years rather than go out to bid.
Yeah, I remember that.
I'll move to approve the Closet Sanderson audit engagement letter for the 2018 audit.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
That's for Vaughn to sign. Thank you.
Okay, any other new business? Anybody would like to bring up? And we'll move to the manifest.
Vaughn?
Yes,
Let's do it.
yes.
The Portsmouth Country Club built an addition, and did they ever get a bill for their discretionary easement? Why?
Because their building was within the perimeter of their area that they could develop.
Do you consider pavement within the discretionary easement, for or against?
What I did at the time, when the
That would
planning
answer the
board,
question?
no, I don't consider pavement. When they were in front of the planning board had Eric Weinrib go out with the plans and review it to make sure that the development that they were doing did not fall within the section that was covered by the discretionary easement. It was difficult, he couldn't do exact measurements because the drawing for the discretionary easement limits it to like a certain number of acres can be developed, the rest cannot be, but it's just a hand drawing, there's no specific meets bounds to say you can't go within that section. So he ensured that the space that they were developing was still within that perimeter that they had, the 97 acres still remained.
And overall, less than the acreage that had been reserved.
Correct.
Okay.
Or
The
not
buil-
90.
The building they built was 2.3 acres. Then the pavement is more than 5 acres. And that doesn't disqualify anything?
The building and a lot of the pavement was done where existing parking lot had been in the past. They removed one building and replaced the building.
Do you have a map that was,
I can probably find in the planning board record, they have the documentation from when we sent the engineer out to go look at it. This was 4 years ago?
well, I mentioned it to you 4 years ago.
That's
too.
right. And that's why I had the engineer go out to make sure that in their planning board review, that if they were encroaching on it, they needed to pay a release tax.
And I believe we did look at it at the time,
right.
and no one on the planning board felt that there had been a violation.
Correct.
That's it.
Well, I disagree, but I'm entitled to that.
Sure.
But you're looking at about a $200,000 penalty if you include pavement.
Again,
If you redo the map and include pavement,
but as I remember
that
that,
existed when the discretionary easement was taken, they are definitely over the 5 acres.
as I remember looking at the original hand-drawn, you couldn't tell.
Okay,
And
disagree. All right. The Vets Hall, I mentioned it to you.
yes,
Has anything been done about that?
not that I know of.
Okay, the Cyphers family is willing to donate the land where the parking lot is and the driveway to get to the Vets Hall if the town would drop a deed so that it matched to what the 38 town meeting said. Because right now, if the vets go out of business, the parking lot and the driveway on the side goes back to the Cypress family.
Right, and the building reverts back to the town.
Right.
Okay. And I haven't heard from Mr. Cyphers or anyone in the Cyphers family. That would be a very generous thing for them to do.
Well,
Okay,
They said they would do it last I talked.
okay, I just don't know that they have communicated that here to the office. We can try to
Can we
work,
make a telephone call?
Don't you?
maybe
incumbent
you
on
can
them?
volunteer your time and help us with that.
Pardon?
Maybe you can volunteer your time and help us with that.
436-1079. And the gentleman's name is Lee. Okay?
If it helps, I'm gonna see Leaf on Thursday. I'll mention it to him.
Right, just
And have him
we
call.
need
Right, we need some.
not a third party
communication.
like to
I'll take care
tell
of
us,
that,
yes, this
yeah.
is what we're
All
actually.
right.
Dick, wouldn't that be Eric and Debbie? Because they own the aunt's house. It's Leaf's land there.
That's separate.
All right.
And I don't wanna get into details about this really. But I will check with him and have him contact town, all right?
Okay.
Okay, Dick?
I'd like to also know the rationale of sending an inventory out once every 5 years.
That was a decision of the board, yes.
Pardon?
The
Yeah.
board decided that, yes,
But why?
to save money and save difficulty for residents. The data wasn't used except to get ready for revaluation.
That's right. But don't you want to get the data every year? Because you're basically giving a free ride from one for the next 4 years?
Inventories aren't the only source of information. You certainly use pickups.
You know, there's quite a question there about adding anything to his property or anything.
Well, we have a full permit situation. We have a building inspector where every issue is being permitted.
Yeah, and we do cyclical
And you're
reval.
assuming everybody is honest and goes in and gets a permit if they put another bathroom in.
Right, and every year we do 20% of the town as a cyclical update, and the assessing department goes out, the assessing contractor goes out to every property within, like, they do 6 maps every year.
Yeah. And frankly, the vast majority of towns get rid of it entirely.
All right. We have a situation on Falls Way where the town conveyed land and,
And made out like a bandit.
well, explain it to me. I'm sort of dense, Paul.
Okay, let's start it this way. There were 2 small parcels of land that were non-buildable lots. An individual came in and purchased those two non-buildable sections at their market value because they were non-buildable, combined them with other land that they had adjacent, turned them into buildable lots, and now we receive full taxation on them as a completed structure. So we turned something that was worth nothing to nobody into 2 completely, fully taxable residential lots.
Yeah, but the land was conveyed to the town of Greenland. And then you held it for a year and a half, and then you conveyed it back. What's the point of that? Are you, Paul?
We did. So we went through the RSA process, through the planning board, the conservation commission.
But I think I was accurate, they were non-buildable,
Correct.
and they were combined with land to make it into buildable lots. And now
And
they're
what
worth, they're
What
worth
did the town get
multiple-
for that?
whatever it was at the time, they were essentially worthless, non-buildable segments, and turned them into fully taxable residential lots with 2 families.
All right.
Does that not make sense to you, Dick?
No, that's absolutely not. Not when the town gets nothing.
But we now have property that we're getting taxes from.
Yeah, and you could send 5 kids to school too. At $18,000 a year. And you're getting 20.
So,
Got a
so
good
in your view, they should have stayed non-buildable?
Pardon?
In your view, they should have stayed non-buildable fragments?
What, the town, it was originally given to the town.
Because they were non-buildable fragments.
No, I don't believe that's the case at all.
Did anyone from Fallsway give anything to the town? No.
Well, what I don't understand
Worthless,
is why.
non-buildable fragments.
When were they given to the
No,
town?
no.
Yeah, excuse me, when were they given to the town? What year?
16.
2016.
3/23/16.
John, you were on the board at that time. I think that was, if I remember correctly, They were useless pieces of land, right?
Yeah, but no, they were created to be useless. Because in 1/11/2010, it was conveyed to the town of Greenland. Or 2014.
In 2014.
That created the useless lot. And then you took the useless lot and conveyed it back to another entity who happened to have the same post office box in Exeter.
Do you want a reminder on what this was?
Yeah.
I'd love them.
Okay. The lot, when it was all transferred over to the town in 2014 is when the roads, the initial Fallsway Road was turned over to the town in the deed with the subdivision completed. This was the strip of land adjacent to the road that abutted the doggy daycare farm area. We had the public hearings. The residents not all residents, a bunch of the residents from that immediate area came in and asked the town as well to please support this and turn that land back over because it was unsightly, it wasn't being maintained, and they preferred to see a house there rather than just the overgrowth from when the old paddock and there was a horse or a llama back there.
Yeah.
And they wanted, right, it could have been both. And they preferred that, then there would be a driveway coming off Fallsway, there would be a house with a yard, and it would be much more attractive than what they were currently dealing
As I
with.
remember, it actually turned into 2 lots, didn't it?
It did, because when he bought the one property, it gave him, he could remodel the existing house and then put a house on the back part of that, coming off Fallsway.
Okay, great.
There were two new houses built, right?
Yep, one on Fallsway and one on Breakfast Hill Road, replacing what existed on Breakfast Hill Road.
So going back to my earlier statement of turning a useless fragment into 2 highly taxable, desirable properties.
Right.
Well, I actually can see Dick's problem with it. It's water over the dam now. That's why I'm very anti-towns giving property away right now and selling it below market value.
Right.
I will not support that ever again.
Right, what we transferred wasn't even a buildable lot, it was basically it was a strip of land abutting.
Yeah, but what he's saying, it made for 2 buildable lots. In his argument, $18,000 per student. Theoretically, you could have 5 students come out of those 2 lots. It's
Actually, if we do that, we might ultimately end up with an elderly person at the county home at $100,000.
Right.
So therefore, should we
Yeah,
kill
you
all
could
the
have
old
8 kids,
people?
nobody ever knows.
Well, I'm behind you. I'm in behind you.
No, she answered my question. I'm all set.
Okay. John?
When did this happen?
2014. Between 14 and maybe 16, seems like
Conveyed to
16.
the town,
In
9/22/14.
In 14. But I think that it was around 16 that the developer came in and asked if we would deed him that strip of land. It went to the planning board, they supported it, it went to Conservation Commission, they supported it, and the residents were very much in support of it and said we would rather be looking at a house than looking at
Okay,
that.
well, one way or the other, it was done.
Okay, let me, Fallsway Greenland LLC, okay, conveyed it to the town.
Yep, as part of
Why
the
did the
deeding.
town get involved? If it
It was-
went to
Because it
home
was part of the
builders,
road. It was deeded in the same deed with the road. And that's when the subdivision was completed and it was passed along to the town. We required the developers to give us deeds.
Of the roads.
Yeah, and it was one of the parcels listed on all the things that they had to give us.
Okay, next.
I got quite a list here.
Oh, we're not done.
Well,
The sign out
yes,
front.
yes, hold, one second, go ahead.
Excuse me, 2014 this happened?
Between 2014 and 16.
Okay, and 19. What does that have to do with apples and oranges?
Well,
I'm sorry, I'm just, this is a
I
selectmen's
agree.
meeting where we're discussing the business of the day.
Right.
And I think you're digging up stuff, you know, for these 2 outgoing selectmen or something. I don't know, what's your agenda? I'm sorry, I just.
I'll be very honest with you. I'm upset that they sold the building lot on Holly Lane for $50,000. I'm upset they sold.
Talk about that if they did that recently, but I sit here in a meeting.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're talking
They're
about
taking
something
these
5 years
well,
old.
my purge.
Well, I'm gonna give you a little more time, and then that's gonna be it. But go ahead and say what you need to say. Because I'm not gonna hold this meeting up for inconsequential things. This is all water over
It
the
could be an
dam.
agenda item at a next meeting.
All right, I'll come back.
Okay.
All right.
Well, what I'll just say is in answer to Jim and everybody else. We went through the proper steps on any land that we conveyed, okay? So if you own land, okay, and I think we went through the public hearings, you went through the planning board, everybody agreed, okay? The town should not be owning land because it increases our liability if somebody gets hurt on our land if we're not taking care of it. So basically, I think the process that we went through was absolutely correct. The one on Holly Lane, that was market value, that was land that we actually took over, so somebody didn't pay their taxes, so
That's
that would have been
right, yeah.
built on anyway,
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah.
So we took it, we got our money back on it, and we made money off it.
Yeah.
So I
We
think
did what we thought was the right.
we always went through the right process, and we would never helter-skelter about anything. So as far as I'm concerned, when you have land sitting there and it's useless, then if somebody wants to come in and give you market value or whatever it is, then why would you keep land that's gonna increase your liability and risk in the future? So I kind of disagree with what he's saying, because not that I was on the board, but I know the steps that we went through.
Okay.
Next.
All right, next, let's see, have we done, let's go through the manifest.
I'd like to move payroll manifest number 4 in the amount of $48,988.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
I would like to move manifest number 1 for the fire and safety revolving fund in the amount of $155.56.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor? Motion passes.
I'd like to move the general fund accounts payable number 4 in the amount of $328,432.17, including a school district payment of $200,000, subject to the accounting reallocation that we discussed earlier in our meeting.
Second. Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen. Put your hand up. Put your hand up.
There. Move to adjourn. Thank you for serving.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm getting long. How you doing, Gabe?